Hey, welcome on in to the KSL Sports front page. Also, it's now the BYU football podcast postgame show, as BYU takes down UCF in the Boca Raton Bowl. I'm Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports, breaking it all down here on the show. And, I'm in my hotel room right now because I'm going to say the Boca Raton Bowl might be the worst media accommodations I think I've ever seen at a sporting event. I've covered a lot of BYU football games, and hands down, the Boca Raton Bowl was probably the worst. I was relegated to the end zone. I didn't even have Wi-Fi. I didn't have a plug. I didn't have anything. I'm lucky that I even survived getting through the night with actual power on my phone and anything. Anyway, that's not enough about that. We're getting to BYU's win over UCF. Cougars take down UCF 49-23. You can interact with me here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Share your comments. I can read them live as BYU closes out the 2020 season 11-1. That means a lot. I mean, you got to go back to 2009 to see the last time BYU ended a season with 11 victories. It doesn't happen very often. And this BYU team, any doubt that they may be going in to this game as to whether or not they're a great team, I think that got erased with the performance they put down on UCF. Look, UCF, not the greatest team in the world, but that's a good football program, one of the best football brands in college football over the last 3 or 4 years. They won 41 of their last 48 coming into tonight, and BYU obliterated that team, 49-23. And credit to the BYU defense, once again holding their opponent to below their season average. Because I know, even myself, coming into this game, I had some questions, I had some doubts as to whether or not this BYU defense could shut down Dylan Gabriel and the UCF Knights. They passed the test with flying colors. And Isaiah Kafusi credited Elisa Tuiaki for the game plan and what they did tonight. So it's a huge win for BYU as the Cougars close out the 2020 season 11-1. Now, I know that they would probably love to step into another game. I bet, if the Gasparilla Bowl, if BYU was allowed a chance to play UAB, they would probably step right in. But the thing is that BYU doesn't need to do that in the season on a high note, and it was truly a high note, including for Zach Wilson, who ends up with 425 yards, 26 of 34, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's now number 9 all-time in passing yardage in BYU football history. That's pretty good, considering that he only started in 28 games in his BYU career. He passed Steve Sarkisian and Mark Wilson tonight to move up to number 9 all-time in the passing yardage list. Zach said after the game and post-game that he hasn't made a decision yet, but he said that he plans to make a decision before New Year's regarding his NFL future. I would expect that he's probably going to move on to the NFL, and rightfully so, because now after tonight's performance, it's no longer a debate as to whether he's a top 15 pick. I think now Zach Wilson has entered the conversation about being maybe quarterback 2 next to Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence is going to be number 1. Then who's that second quarterback? Is it Wilson? Is it Justin Fields? This performance tonight puts Zach Wilson firmly in that conversation, in my opinion. Got some comments coming in. Christian Hansen on YouTube writes, "Hi from Orem, Utah. Hello from Boca Raton." Boop1225 said, "Why did my wife leave me?" We've made it, folks. When we get this is like Woj type replies right there. Why did my wife leave me? That's good stuff. We're getting some reach on the socials. Keep sharing this with your friends, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Christopher Brown writes, "Looking good, brother. Enjoy the heat." Yes, it was pretty hot. Got a little bit chilly, though. I'm not going to lie. Now, I shouldn't say this to our Utah viewers that it got chilly in Florida. It was funny. Some of the UCF fans were like, "Ooh, it's getting cold." I'm thinking to myself, folks, this is like the summer heat here in Utah. I'm sweating. I always sweat, though. Anyway, BYU again. This is the KSL Sports BYU football post game here on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Mitch Harper, your BYU insider. You can follow me on Twitter at Mitch_Harper. The Cougars get it done 49-23. Trevor Eli writes, "Mitch, you are the GOAT." Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate that, my man. I appreciate all of you throughout the season following the content, downloading Cougar Tracks, Cougar Sports Saturday. It's been a great year. Is there any reason for Zach Wilson to stay? J Boz92 writes. That's a good question. I think there is some incentive potentially if one, he wants to come back and beat Utah, but you shouldn't predicate your whole decisions on Utah. I think BYU would be a preseason top 25 team next year if he came back. Also, name, image, likeness potentially kicks into effect in 2021. He could potentially, as a senior, make some coin as BYU's senior quarterback next season. So that could be an element, but hey, it's not going to be number 2 overall pick coin, if you know what I mean. Casey Finlinson writes, Mitch, Brady Christensen looks so good. Is he gone as well? You know, Brady's interesting to me because I feel like he looks like he should be a first-round, second-round talent. But at the same time, he's the type of guy that I wouldn't be surprised if he declared early and we get to day 3 of the NFL draft and he still has yet to hear his name called. He's Mel Kiper's best available, kind of like Matt Reynolds back a few years ago, think about 2011. He could maybe slip to the 6th or 7th round, maybe. I feel like he's a second-round talent. I feel like he should be a day 2 guy. It depends on maybe the valuations he gets. If he gets an assurance from like an agent or people that he feels confident they're sourcing that he's going to be a second-round, third-round pick, you got to go. He is older. You got to go. And maybe a team will reach a little bit and fall in love with him because he's at a premium position at the left tackle spot. Andrew T. Taylor writes in, what does it say about BYU that Cincinnati only beat UCF by 3 points? Honestly, I don't read too much into that because I think regular season games and bowl games are far different. In Cincinnati and UCF, there's a lot more familiarity. It's a conference opponent. I don't think there's really any comparables. I think these are all great football programs. Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, it's all good football. I mean, you watch BYU tonight, and we're so into the college football world where it's Power 5 this, Group of 5 that. It's this huge divide. You try to tell me that BYU's not one of the better teams in college football this year? I don't care who they play. That's how they operate, how they execute with a star quarterback. It's one of the best teams in college football this year. BYU deserves to be a top 10 team in the final polls. Best team out west by a mile. Casey writes in again, should BYU just hang out and go play UAB Saturday? No, I don't think so. Let the season end. Let these guys enjoy Christmas. I think it's over. It should be over. And I think also the issue, too, that people are forgetting, I know that BYU explored the possibility of 2 bowl games, but I think the issue is that the NCAA would probably not approve it because it would honestly be a I don't know what happened right there. Are we still on? Goodness gracious. I don't know what's going on. Boca Raton. It's got me feeling some kind of way. Am I right? This weather, I guess. He lives. Thank you. I don't know what the heck happened there. My apologies. Christian Hansen. So what's going down with Matt Bushman? He actually lives in my parents' basement apartment. He actually signed with a NFL draft or like an agency to prepare for the combine. Expect Matt Bushman to officially move on. He graduated from BYU earlier this month. His last days as a BYU Cougar, I think, are here. And honestly, I think BYU at the tight end position is going to be just fine. Isaac Rex is tremendous. Carter Wheat's going to be coming back. Hank Tuipulotu is going to be healthier. And Hank Tuipulotu last year was maybe the best tight end next after Matt Bushman a season ago. He's still kind of working his way back. So many talented tight ends in the program. You get Bentley Hanshaw after a year redshirting. Lane Lunt, another year of experience. I'm forgetting a few guys that are coming off missions as well, but BYU at tight end, they are locked and loaded for the foreseeable future. I think also at quarterback, too. I think BYU at quarterback, even if Zach Wilson leaves, which I expect him to go, I think that Jacob Conover is going to be a heck of a talent. It was interesting tonight in the pregame. I saw Jaron Hall throwing some passes in the pregame, which is the first time I saw that happen this year. Because in pregames, he's been at every game Jaron Hall has this season. He's been on the sideline with his teammates. He's nursing a hip injury that he suffered in fall camp. Kept him out through the entire year, obviously. But it was interesting to see him get a few throws in the pregame warmups. He didn't dress. He was injured, of course, but still, I thought that was notable that he's getting closer and closer because I think it's going to be critical for him to be ready to go for spring football if he wants to have a chance at being the starting quarterback. And then Baylor Romney, too. I don't think he looked the greatest as he could have maybe in the opportunities he filled in for Zach Wilson in blowout garbage time, maybe because he was working with second and third string guys. But I think you put Baylor Romney in the first team offense, I think he'll have success. Now, will he be Zach Wilson? No, there's going to be a drop off, but I think that Aaron Roderick has a track record now where he gets the most out of his talent. Oh, thank you. Alan Miller writes in Dallin Holker. Yes. How could I forget Dallin Holker? Might be, he could be on par with Isaac Rex next year. That's how good Dallin Holker is going to be. Kalani Sitake pointed him out at the signing day press conference earlier this month. Holker will be a star for BYU. Look, everyone loves Matt Bushman, and Bushman was a legend. I think he could have been maybe the best tight end potentially of all time. Had he played this season statistically, he could have been better than Dennis Pitta. He would have probably been a second-round draft pick. But now because of that Achilles injury, he goes down early, and he's going to be moving on. And I think BYU won't skip a beat, as you saw this season. What are the odds the coaching staff comes back intact next year after the success this year? That's a good question. And I think a lot of people were kind of a little bit paranoid when they saw the Jeff Grimes, when I tweeted out that Jeff Grimes wasn't on the sideline tonight. Now, Kalani was asked about this in the postgame. He didn't directly answer as to why Grimes was out, but he noted that his team, both coaches and players, have never been healthy throughout any game this entire season. So read between the lines, if you will. And even Coach Mateos tweeted out tonight that he was in Provo due to Corona. So again, read between the lines. I don't think that was anything about the coaching carousel, about Jeff Grimes' absence. But I do think that Jeff Grimes will get some fielders. Maybe that LSU offensive coordinator job. He's got a connection with Ed Orgeron. Steve Ensminger retires at LSU. Jeff Grimes is now the Broyles Award finalist, the top assistant. His stock might never be higher, and LSU's looking to bounce back and get back to the success they had offensively with Joe Burrow. Zach Wilson was the next best thing to Joe Burrow this season in college football. Maybe Jeff Grimes can pull some strings and maybe be a candidate for LSU. Now, I would think that LSU would probably want someone more proven, a bigger track record, a bigger name, but you never know. Questions keep rolling in here on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Keep them coming in. I'm your BYU insider, Mitch Harper, here for KSLSports.com. Recapping BYU's win over UCF, 49-23. And, some of the stats here, just kind of going through this. Total yards, 655 yards for BYU. Wow. Passing yards, 441. Rushing yards, 214. Defensively, BYU holds UCF to 411, but a lot of that, I think, came in the second half. The Cougar defense was fantastic tonight. Nearly got 3 interceptions, and all of them were negated. One of them was dropped. 2 of them were dropped, and then another got negated due to a penalty. So it was a great performance tonight from BYU. And it was also fun, too. Shout out to Cougar Nation for showing up tonight here in Boca Raton. I know a lot of the people that were in attendance were family members of the players. Talked to a few of them here at the stadium tonight. But just it was a great atmosphere. You would think that UCF being 3 hours away from this game, that they would have had, 4,000, 5,000 of the 6,000 tickets sold for their fan base. Not the case. We know BYU got a national following. They got a ton of people that care about this program. It was just cool, again, to see fans in the stands. And it was cool after the game, too, to see Zach Wilson signing autographs for the kids. And it was in that moment where it's like, man, you miss that part of football. You miss that part of big games. You miss that part of just seeing the fans interact with the players, and that just the element that brings to a sporting event. You can't replicate that. And I've missed that in 2020, and it was great to see a lot of fans in the stands. Who was the toughest team UCF beat this year? It's a good question. It's a good question, Christian. I'd have to think off the top of my head. I mean, the losses stand out more than the wins, honestly, with UCF. MB Barney tweets in, enjoy your work, Mitch. Keep it going. Thank you. I appreciate that. Plan to keep that going. You know what? Tell my bosses. This is a little fun fact. Every game I went to this year, 11 of the 12, BYU won. Only missed one game. It was Coastal Carolina. I'm just saying. I'm just putting that out there. Maybe I'm the good luck. I'm kidding. But I am undefeated since I worked at KSL when I go on road games. Just saying. Just putting that out there. Which seniors will be returning? Good question. You know what? I would think, a guy, it's all kind of up in the air right now. A guy that I think would be well served to come back would be Zach Daw. You saw that great play he had on a 4th down to get that tackle for loss to stop UCF. I think he's the type of guy that you come back, get another year under your belt at the defensive line spot. Because remember, he used to be an offensive lineman, moved over to defensive line, and in between he lost his scholarship, didn't know if he was going to play football anymore. If he comes back, I think that would be a nice piece to have along the defensive line. Speaking of that defensive line, Uriah Leatawa, he will be returning next year. Isaiah Kafusi will be interesting. He said in the post game that his thought right now would probably be to move on, but he'll weigh all of his options and do what's best for him and his 19-month-old child. So those are some ones that stand out. I think Kairos Tonga, he's going to be moving on. Matt Bushman, as we discussed earlier, he would be moving on. Kairos obviously hasn't made that official. I think Bracken El-Bakri could be a candidate to return. I know his brother, Braden El-Bakri, told him to come back one more year, and he should. I mean, the one thing that makes it tricky with the seniors potentially coming back with this blanket waiver rule, they don't count against the 85 scholarships. BYU will have to pony up the money to pay for them, and they're fine to do that. That's not a problem. It's going to be they'll count against the 123-man roster. So maybe some return missionaries, maybe some preferred walk-ons that BYU had plans to put them on the roster in 2021. If some of those seniors come in, that then takes up a spot that maybe was unexpected or not accounted for, that they had relegated to another person in 2021. So that's kind of the only thing that makes it tricky. Otherwise, they don't count against the scholarship count. So it's not that big of a deal. Mad Cougar 86, would Conover beat out Romney for the quarterback spot next year? I would say as of right now, no. I would say Romney would get the start because I think experience will trump all. And I think that the learning curve with Zach Wilson and these quarterbacks, I think that'll be the calling card that you point to with Aaron Roderick and the staff as they'll turn to experience early on. But Jacob Conover will be a special talent at BYU. Last month, A-Rod told me when I asked him, he said that Jacob Conover had already learned the playbook, and he didn't matriculate into school until about mid-September of this season. They kind of took advantage of that blanket waiver rule. They worked him into the program with a scholarship. He's already learned the playbook, according to Aaron Roderick. So that's a positive development for Conover heading into spring practices. But I would still, if the season, spring football or fall camp started for 2021 today, and obviously it doesn't, there's still a lot of time between now and then, I would go with Romney at this juncture. I think Jaron Hall might be most interesting and most talented prospect of them all, but injuries are an issue, and he's got to be healthy. Romney, though, is I think his floor is much higher than anyone else. His ceiling, though, how high is that? I think Conover is the guy that's got the highest ceiling. So how do you weigh that out? If Conover becomes on equal footing with Romney, I think then maybe you could see Conover win the job. But I think Romney, if Zach Wilson leaves, and I think that we all believe that he will move on, he'll make that decision before New Year's, he said. I think Baylor Romney, will be that number one guy at the beginning because of the experience for BYU. T-Gram 39, A-Rod is special. I hope the Y can keep him and hope he stays. Future Cougo C. Yeah. Aaron Roderick has done a fantastic job with the quarterbacks. And it's interesting, too, because before Aaron Roderick was hired, I think the feeling was he's just a buddy to Kalani. He's just, a Utah guy, never had much success with their offenses up at Utah, and he burned BYU once, and then he went back to Utah. There was kind of mixed feelings, I think, in the BYU fan base towards Aaron Roderick, but he's kind of silenced some of the critics and the haters, if you will, and done a great job with his quarterbacks. I mean, think about this. BYU tonight goes an entire season for the first time since 2013, wire to wire, the same starting quarterback in every game. And what happens? BYU goes 11-1. You get stability at the quarterback position, you're going to win ball games in college football. And BYU is a place that gets great quarterback prospects. I mean, I just went through some of the names. I didn't even mention Soljay Maiava-Peters. BYU has great arms, great quarterback talent. It's got a pipeline. It's got a brand that still conjures up interest from elite quarterback prospects. And if you can stay healthy at that spot, you're going to have success. Is Zach for sure going pro this year? No, it's not for sure. He hasn't officially decided. If he does go, and we're assuming that maybe he would go, because it just makes too much sense. I think the issue, I think, for Zach is it's kind of like Matt Barkley from USC. Remember him a couple of years ago? Barkley comes back for his senior year at USC, wants to win a Pac-10 title, or Pac-12 title, Rose Bowl championship, wants to do all these great things at college. And it almost felt like the NFL was looking for the flaws rather than celebrating how good of a talent he is. Sometimes you just want you got to go when the upside is there. But hey, it's ultimately going to be Zach Wilson's decision. I think a lot of people would have said, man, he should have opted out of this bowl game if he was headed for the NFL. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to ride with his guys, as he said, and he didn't want to, have a negative mark on his character, and he didn't want to show any sort of negative tune or tone towards his character. Christian Hansen, BYU needs to steal quarterback Cooper Lega from USU. Yeah. I mean, Cooper Lega, I don't know. Did he end up starting this season for the Aggies? I know he was gonna start in one game, but he got canceled due to COVID. BYU and UCF 49-23. Cougars 11-1. How are you feeling, Cougar fans, about this win this season for BYU? What was your favorite moment of the season? I got to say that this BYU team, I've been watching BYU football every game since 1995. My first memories as a kid with BYU football was in 1994 when they played in the Copper Bowl. That was my first distinct memory. And ever since then, I've watched every game religiously, and I'm blessed to say that I do this professionally, and it's for my job. But I got to say, I don't want to get into knee-jerk reactions, but I feel like this is the second best team in the last 25 years that I've watched since 1995. I'd put 1996 still number one. But I feel like this team was better than 2001, better than 2006, and better than 2007. And I think the argument then gets to become maybe 2009, but 2009 had losses in big games. How much does a Coastal Carolina maybe knock this team? I don't know. I mean, but 11-1 season, and your only loss is to an undefeated team. And if Coastal Carolina wins in their bowl game against Liberty in the Cure Bowl, it's a shame that, by the way, that they don't get a chance at a New Year's Six. I think this is the second best team in my lifetime that I've seen. Now, the 80s, I mean, I feel like I can call myself a BYU historian. I've watched a lot of games from the 80s on demand and whatnot. And I can't say I live that. I can't say that I watched that week after week and followed the storylines and all that. I just think that this team, to navigate a pandemic and to have the willingness to play throughout it all, it's a special year. And I think that them winning this way tonight against UCF erases any doubt that this team was not great, was not special. It's a good BYU football team, and they deserve to be in the top 10, I think, of the final polls. Is this win going to change BYU's ranking? I think it should. I think the AP poll is showing a willingness to bump BYU up. The college football playoff is done. Their rankings, they won't have any more rankings come out, so it doesn't matter. And thank goodness. No one wants to hear from Gary Barta again. That guy's terrible. That system's a joke. The coaches poll, I believe they'll issue one more ranking. And we know Coach O, Ed Orgeron, he loves the Cougs. He's got him at number 8 in his rankings. Whittingham's got him down to number 18. I'm like, come on, Whit. You can't put your alma mater in the top 15. Come on, man. I think BYU pushes for the top 10 in the AP. I think coaches, they're probably at 11. I think AP, though, they can crack into that top 10. I think the media will be bought into what BYU did against UCF. With the same amount of prep time the coaches had to plan for UCF, BYU would have crushed CCU. I think so. The fact that BYU was 1 yard away from winning that game on 2 days' notice, you wonder, though, right? I mean, that's got to be the biggest question about this season is what would that game have looked like with a full weeks of prep? Michael McConkey, biggest BYU targets for recruiting the next few weeks. Victory Vaca, former Texas A&M commit. He's one to keep an eye on. And there was also a USC commit who decommitted today. It could be on BYU's radar as well. I'm drawing a blank on the name. It's been a long day. I decommitted earlier today. I'll get it for you. I'll do some recruiting stuff here a little bit later this month. Any chance Bushman comes back to join Rex Mill and Gunner next year? I don't expect so. He's already planning to work out with a agency in preparation for the NFL Draft Combine. Good work, Mitch. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, T. Graham. Merry Christmas to all of you. Keep the comments flowing if you got any. You can follow me on Twitter at Mitch_Harper. Also download the KSL Sports app on Apple, Google Play, wherever you get your apps. Download the KSL Sports app. You can get the push notifications, updates on BYU, all of that. Phil Morgan, should Tom Homo change the way he schedules after this season, where the wins were what mattered? Phil, that's a good question. I don't think BYU should change anything. I think that BYU should play the toughest schedules that they can. Let's face it, BYU is an undefeated team with a weak schedule. It's not going to get them anywhere. BYU with an undefeated season and with a tough schedule, probably not going to get them anywhere other than like a Boca Raton Bowl. I mean, maybe they could get to a New Year's Six. Who knows? But I think what I'm getting at is that the college football powers that be won't let BYU into the system. I think we kind of learned that this year, right? So I think that BYU with scheduling, play the toughest teams you can, play in great venues, play against, marquee name brands and measure yourself up against the best, because then you can sell that on the recruiting trail. You can go tell guys in California, hey, come to BYU, go take a chance on this program that's a faith-based institution. There's some lifestyle changes that might have to happen, but we're going to give you a football program that's going to give you an opportunity and a platform to succeed at the highest levels. That's my thought. How's Tristan Hodge? Good question. I saw him on the sideline. His dad went down on the sideline to kind of check on him. He looked okay. He was walking around at the end of the game. I hope he's doing all right, because he was a Senior Bowl prospect, watch list candidate this season. Is Algier a senior this year? How does Finau fit in next year? Interesting question. Algier is actually a junior, and with a blanket waiver year, he could have 2 more years left, which is pretty remarkable, right? I mean, he goes from one of the top linebackers that was a fill-in guy last season, and he switches back over to running back. Algier has been a revelation. And remember back in August when Devontae Henry Cole left BYU and he goes up to Utah State, and Kalani Sitake said a comment of, yeah, DHC left because he knew how good of the running backs that BYU had. And then the moment you thought, okay, is that just kind of a coach being bitter? Clearly not, because Algier was tremendous this season. Best year BYU's had from a running back since Jamal Williams. It's just not often that BYU gets 1,000-yard rushers, and to do it in a season that only had 11 games. It's kind of like a throwback back to the early 90s, early 2000s. Algier was fantastic. I think that after him, Lopini comes back. Sione Finau, I think, could be in that third spot. Who's going to be really interesting, though, at running back in 2021 is Miles Davis, who I thought looked good in the opportunities that he got this season. He continues to learn the running back position. I think he's going to be a really nice prospect for BYU in the future. Then you get Jax Mcchesney back from an injury, who was really good in fall camp from what I heard, and he got that touchdown run against Navy, if memory serves me right, and then he got hurt on that touchdown run against the midshipmen. So McChesney comes back. And then I'm trying to think off the top of my head, any missionaries. Again, I'm just kind of free flowing this here. I'll have a full list of all the missionaries and everything coming up here in the coming weeks on KSLSports.com. But I would like to see, though, I'm not going to lie, at the running back spot, maybe one more guy added, just to kind of continue to push everyone and to have that competitive depth. But Tyler Algier's your number one, and it's not even close. And I think Lopini Katoa, number 2. I mean, that catch he had down the sideline, that's one of the better catches I've seen in the last 10 years, at least, from BYU football player. And I've seen Austin Collie, I've seen Dennis Pitta, I've seen great players, Cody Hoffman, Dax Milne, Gunnar Romney. I've seen some great players, and Lopini had a great catch. Yeah, Hinckley Rapati, thank you. Michael, coming in clutch there. Hinckley Rapati, and who was a guy that Jeff Grimes said in fall camp was going to be in the mix, kind of top 3 mix going into fall camp. And he was a junior college transfer who was barely learning the playbook. He's been out with an ACL injury this year. He comes back. BYU's pretty loaded at running back. Wouldn't mind another body, just because I think you want to take on the Kalani Sitake approach of there's never enough depth. There's never enough competition. there was the perfect situation like a Tyson Williams out there. Easier said than done, I understand. But I think that I would love to see another running back. Just because also I think it's important, I think, to get at least one impact skill player every year. You will give another impact guy at the wide receiver spot next year. Chase Roberts coming off a mission. Now we'll see when he officially comes back. COVID's kind of altered everything with the return dates, but Chase Roberts from American Fork High School, he's going to be a baller. Under Armour All-American. He'll be a spectacular player for BYU that gets added to a wide receiver room that's got Gunnar Romney back, got Dax Milne back, Neil Pau'u back, Chris Jackson back, Cody Epps back. Wide receiver feels like it could be loaded next season. Biggest position need next year? That's another good question. Top of my head, I would say safety. Safety feels like a spot it's a position of need. Zane Anderson's going to be a guy to monitor what his decision is. I believe he was selected for the Hula Bowl to play in that, so an all-star game. So if he plays in that and pursues the NFL draft, he'll be moving on. Hasn't made a decision officially. Troy Warner, same deal. And then after those guys, there's a little bit of a drop-off at safety. Kavika Fanua was a hybrid guy, played a little bit of that nickel safety, a little bit of linebacker as well. He's another senior, but then Jared Capisi, a senior walk, and probably expect that he's going to move on. Who will probably be those safeties, those next in line, the great BYU safeties? That, to me, is a position of need next year. I think also nose tackle, if you lose Kairos Tonga, he's going to be someone that he's a important piece to replace. But you get back Atunaisa Mahe, who I thought did a nice job in replace of him as a backup last season. Atunaisa was out this season with an injury. He comes back next year as well. Fantastic takes, Mitch. I'm now a follower. Love this pod tonight. Merry Christmas. Thank you, SLC Jazzman. I appreciate that. Mace Cove, was Grimes at the game? It seems like he wasn't. Is that telling for his future for the Cougs? I addressed this earlier. Grimes was not at the game. Kalani was asked about him in the post game, and he said to the effect of, he didn't address it head on, but he said, we haven't been at full strength either with our players or coaches in any game this season. And that was also in regards to Eric Mateos as well. Eric Mateos on Twitter said he was in Provo due to the corona. So read between the lines, if you will. I do think that Grimes could be a coaching candidate to keep an eye on for other teams. I think so. He's done enough. Saka P. Fizzle, hope I'm saying that right. What needs to happen this offseason to take another step forward next year, if that's even possible? You know, I think that's a great question. And I asked Kalani about that in the post game because I feel like this is an opportunity for BYU because they don't want to just be that one-hit wonder. You don't want to be that one and done where it's like you get that 11-win season and then you revert back to 7, 8, 9 wins. And, 9 wins would be great with next year's schedule. 7 Power 5s, great. And you got Boise and all that. But I feel like BYU, if they could put together another 9, 10, 11-win season, that's where you start to maybe change the perception of the program on a national scale for years to come, for at least, the foreseeable future. Because you don't want to have, Zach Wilson leaves potentially, and then suddenly BYU goes just back to 7, 8 wins. You don't want that to happen. Now, averages would suggest that BYU, with the exception of the 80s, they're an 8-win football team on average per year. I think that's the baseline. That's the minimum expectation. BYU shouldn't be a program that's hovering around 6 wins. They're good enough to always get at least 8 wins, but can they get that 9, 10, 11 win mark? I think that BYU's got enough depth across the positions. When I was asked, earlier about, what positions of need, there's not many that stand out for BYU next season. Quarterback's going to be one just because of, if you do lose Zach, that's going to be a huge loss. You got to have someone emerge and step up to take the reins. But I think the guys are in the stable necessary that BYU will need to turn to. I think that, BYU's got a chance next year to be a quality football team. And I think that the key, is always to take that next step. More resources for the program in terms of support staff will always be critical. And I think also, I think that BYU, I feel like they've established a bit of an identity this year. I feel like they're a physical brand of football, both on the offensive and defensive side. And I think that, if they can maintain that, and they've given so many valuable reps to young guys that game experience, you want to hope that it just carries over into the momentum can continue for the program. I think BYU can be a 9-win, 10-win team next year. I do. Even with 7 Power 5s. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. Like, I look at the schedule next year, and like Arizona, BYU should smoke Arizona. Like, that's a bad football program. Don't tell me just because they're a Power 5 that that's going to be a daunting task for BYU. Arizona's a dumpster fire. BYU should win that game. Utah's going to be a challenge just because 9-game losing streak, all that. They got a good running back in Ty Jordan. Arizona State, why can't BYU win that game? I mean, I look at that schedule in 2021, and I tell myself, what game is the decisive loss? Maybe USC? Maybe. But USC is always a hit-and-miss team, and BYU beat them last year with a team that was far less experienced a season ago. I think BYU can win a lot of games next year. And I hate the narrative that is just simply, oh, they're Power 5, so clearly they're going to be just a tough challenge for BYU. Yes, these Power 5 teams got more resources, but BYU, in terms of talent, they look great. I think that this is a BYU program that's ready to take on that challenge. BYU is always a quality team if they have decent offensive and defensive lines. Well said. Brian McDonald asked about the depth at running back position. Hey, Brian, appreciate you chiming in. We went over it a little bit, but again, I think, Tyler's going to be number 1. Sione Finau's in the mix. Lopini Katoa number 2. Miles Davis, Hinckley Rapati, Jax Mcchesney comes back. I feel like I'm missing someone else too. I know Luke Andrada's another guy in there, potentially, but we'll see. So, all right. My boys are friends of Isaac Matua. What can you tell me about him? He's from Kearns High School. He just got back from a mission, I want to say, this past November, I believe. Safety, defensive back. Good athlete, though. Hybrid. He's kind of that classic Kalani Sitake, Elisa Tuiaki. Get him as an athlete and just see if he could become maybe a defensive end. He could add 40 pounds and maybe, depending on where his body type grows into, he could be a lot of different positions. Casey, Merry Christmas to you as well, my friend. Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope all of you enjoyed tonight, enjoyed the coverage on KSLSports.com. We'll have more coverage on KSL Sports app, Cougar Tracks podcast, KSL5 TV, KSL News Radio, a whole lot of different places. So I appreciate all of you. Grateful for all of you and your readership and interaction with you. Let me just tell you, I just kind of a moment. I love doing this job. I love giving the content and hope that passion resonates with all of you in my work because I love doing what I do. So appreciate all of you. Have a great night and a safe night. I'll talk to you on Cougar Tracks podcast on Cougar Sports Saturday, this Saturday. Merry Christmas to all of you. And in closing, BYU defeats UCF 49-23. Make sure to like this KSL Sports Facebook page, subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. Have a good night.